So I've been listening to the talk about contrast, and my question,
Would you say contrast or contrast?
Both. So with contrast, would you consider it rocket fuel?
Not at first. You can play it two ways. You can have a little contrast and know what you want and move toward it, and then have a little contrast and know what you want and move toward it, and have a little contrast and know what you want and move toward it. Then you wouldn't call anything about that rocket fuel. Or you could have a little contrast, know what you want, but talk about where you are. So have a little greater contrast and know more what you want, but not move toward it. Just talk about where you are. And then have more contrast and launch a stronger rocket. Now there's getting more fuel in this rocket. When you really know what you don't want, you really know what you do want. And when you let go, you fly further. And really, you all sort of like the drama of that. That's why it's like you hold yourself apart from it, because somehow you prefer the feeling of relief to all other emotions. And we say, hear us, this is the equivalent to that. When you stop hitting yourself over the head with a hammer, it feels good. It's a big relief when the hammering stops, but really?
Right. That makes total sense, because last year I would say it was like Mr. Toad's Wild Ride with the contrast.
Yeah.
And I think I spread myself here, there, trying to fix everything, trying to, settle this, settle that. And
well, that's all right. Because out of that comes clarity about what you want. You want different things at different times, and none of it is wrong. But what happens, have you noticed that once you come to a place where you feel pretty good, you wonder how you ever stood it before you got there? And we say, don't spend too much time reflecting on how far you've come, or you set yourself up for more unneeded contrast. Instead, revel in where you are. The best emotional and therefore vibrational attitude is satisfied with what is and eager for more. That's just the perfect understanding of how the universe works. If I feel satisfaction, and where did we remind you that satisfaction comes from? Only one thing: moving, at least pointing in the direction of your desires. So satisfied with where I am because I'm looking forward, and eager for what experiences that's going to bring, what I'm going to get to witness. Yeah.
And I think at the end of that particular contrast, it was like a light bulb went off, like, oh, I get to decide, like I don't have to be doing what I'm doing. So once that clarity dropped in, I then turned toward what I wanted.
And at the basis of everything that we've been talking about, especially this morning, is an understanding that you are not the rocket fuel. You are not the fuel at all. The law of attraction and the universal forces, that's the fuel. Humans are used to equating the amount of effort that they offer to the amount of results that they get. And it is backwards, because effort is indication of resistance that you believe is there, that you're trying to overcome with your action. Most people offer all of their action in response to the resistance that they've stirred up with their thoughts. So they have sloppy thinking and create a lot of resistance, and then work hard with action to compensate for the resistance. And that's why the more you're able to meditate and chill and appreciate and bask and be nice to yourself, not only with your behavior but with your thoughts, then the more you allow yourself to receive the leverage, and we mean leverage, of the power of the universe. One who is in sync with their inner being and source energy is more powerful than millions who are not. There's just no comparison. But how are you going to know that till you know it? How are you going to want ease until you've been overwhelmed? How are you going to know that? You can't focus yourself into the ease and flow of source energy until you've deprived yourself from it enough to realize that you have felt better and you don't right now, and maybe something different is required from you in order to feel better. But you got to admit how interesting this is. Oh, this is so interesting. Contemplate this just for a moment. So you were born from source energy, and you are an extension of source energy, which means you were born from pure love, and you are pure love. Just rest with that for a moment. And then you were exposed to contrast, which you did on purpose, and you watched others who got here before you did and forgot their extension, and then you felt negative emotion. and then you felt positive emotion, and then you felt negative emotion, and then you felt positive emotion. So the thing that is of such great interest to us is how any of you could ever give up the desire for feeling good, and how you would be willing to replace feeling good with the alternative. The departure from your own guidance system is really what all of our conversations are about, and the return to your guidance system and the return to your deliberate living of life experience. Don't you find it interesting that you are love, you are born as love? It's the dominant vibration that is within you, and it feels so terrible when you're not loving. It feels so terrible to be in a moment of criticizing. That just feels awful. You know that it does, and yet you acclimate to that feeling, and in the acclimation to that feeling, then you try to control the circumstances rather than just returning to the love. The point that we want to make, that we really want you to be in a vibrational place of hearing, is that you can return to the feeling of love easily, but you will never be able to control enough circumstances to stop your feeling of opposite of that. To try to control the circumstances so that you'll feel better gets you nowhere. It's so much easier. We've talked about how you've lived enough life to know what you want and what you don't want, and you're very clear about what you want. And so instead of making a proclamation to yourself and to your non-physical counterpart and guiding yourself by paying attention to the way you feel, instead you decide to do it more like other humans do it. And you put out a proclamation, and these days with social media, you can get it out there. So you send out a proclamation to everybody on the planet that says, this is a picture of me, and there's a possibility you might meet me someday, and when you do, these are the things I need from you. Please print this off and keep this picture in your pocket, and every person meet, say, is it him, is it her, is it him, is it her? It's a lot to ask of the world, but it's sort of what you're doing. And now here's my list of things that I need. Please modify your behavior to please me, because I was born to be happy. Or you can just not try to control any of them, and you can tune yourself to the frequency of your inner being, who is standing in the vibrational reality that you've created, and you can stand with all things wanted raining down around you. Now, why would you not choose that? We're asking a serious question. Why would you not choose that? Well, the answer is often, what would others think? And we say, are you kidding? Those that you needed to control that you can't control, now you're still worried about what they think? You got to give that up. You got to give up trying to cater to the multitudes that have such a variety of trying to control you and need to control you, so that they, in their ignorance of who they really are, can feel a little better. We made you feel a little silly about trying to do that, and yet most of the world around you, that's really the game they're playing. They're joining together in groups, and they're putting out their memos about how they want to behave, and they want the world to conform to them. That's never going to happen, because you keep being born as new babes of energy with no intention of conforming. You're not born as regurgitators or conformers. You're born as creators. You're born to appreciate the variety from which you choose, that lines you up, a very clear picture of what you want. And then you intended to use your guidance system to know whether you're leaning in that direction, and you can feel by your satisfaction whether you are, or your dissatisfaction whether you're not. It is not complicated unless you try to include all of the other humans on the planet and convince them of the same. If you just do the work that is your work to do, you can accomplish it today while we are all here together, and you can live happily ever after. But if you are concerned about how others are going to view you as you are living happily ever after, because there are plenty of humans out there who are suffering so much that if you're not suffering, they don't like you. You need to suffer. Otherwise, we cannot be friends. You're either with me or you're against me. And if you don't suffer with me, then you don't care about me. And Jesus said, turn the other cheek. Do not focus in the direction of the suffering. Turn in the direction of the well-being.
It reminds me of recently I was in Cancun and we were with dolphins and we were told to swim out and 2 dolphins would come behind us and carry us forward. Well, you know, a lot of people went out and real stiff and I went out there and all of a sudden they appeared and whooshed me forward and then they released. And what I had to do is just relax into being support.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And just relax. And it was support that I wouldn't have had otherwise. It was really quite beautiful.
The dolphin understands what looking forward is about and what moving you in the direction of what you want is about and about what the basis of where you are is about and the stability of what is about. Not one of them swam around and said, it's not going to work out with this one. Every dolphin trusted every human because every dolphin knew mostly about the process. Yeah.
It was beautiful. So now I'm looking at contrast and moving toward what I desire and enjoying the journey, truly. I'm enjoying this part of it where this piece gets put in, this piece gets put in, and like you're saying.
So let's talk briefly about that because this is a big piece in all of this. If you have decided that you are a creator and you've decided to be deliberate about it rather than creating by default, rather than just reacting to life, you've decided to get out ahead of it, to prepave and to intend and to appreciate and to daydream, and you've decided to be a creator. And so you have thought some deliberate thoughts. You've been segment intending long range. I'm going to live happily ever after. You've segment intended more short range. I'm going to find a magnificent partner and I'm really going to enjoy life with this person. You've decided shorter range. I'm going to go on a Mediterranean cruise, or I'm going to go to a seminar, or I'm going to go to a movie. You've decided more short range. I'm going to go next door and have a really good lunch. You're segment intending as far out as you can do and feel ease while you're doing it. And so because you are getting really good at segment intending, now life is really responding to you in a wonderful way. And because you're segment intending, and so many of those things that you have explicitly and personally intended are showing up, pretty soon you begin to feel the power of your intentionality. And that's the deliciousness of deliberate. The satisfaction factor is a factor on steroids once you start making the correlation, the conscious correlation between what you intended and what the universe is yielding to you. That's just the best that it gets. And we're not talking about these great big, we are talking about these great big things, but we're not only talking about these great big things. We're talking about the intertwining, like our friends have been describing here today. Those things become as meaningful as great big things. The way the universe wraps around you and adores you and shows you your well-being in this moment and this moment and this moment and this moment and this moment, before long you begin to know your worthiness. It's not just this fleeting thought that you're hoping for. As a human, you stop waiting until you're in heaven hoping that when you get there someone will assign you the having been worthy label. Instead, you realize that your worthiness was always there, and lots of times you weren't letting it in, but now you figured out how to let it in. So you let yourself be loved. You see, Source is loving you, but if you don't let yourself be loved, you don't know Source is loving you. You got to turn on your radio and dial it into love, and then you feel loved, you see. Yeah.
It's beautiful. Appreciate that.
Yeah. Enough?
Enough.
On the aisle right here.